You value something more just because it's a bit flawed, or maybe, not as good as the store-bought version.
Yeah. Especially if you're the one who put the effort in.
Exactly. Like maybe you paid extra at some cafe just to put your own cake together, even though the perfect ones were right there.
Or that bookshelf you built, the one that maybe wobbles a bit.
Yes. And somehow you love it more than some fancy solid one someone else made. What's going on there?
It really is strange, isn't it? You expect, quality to be the main thing, ease.
But it's like our own effort just messes with that logic. Why does working harder make something feel better?
Precisely. And that paradox, that's really what we're digging into for you today in this deep dive.
You're exploring this thing called the Ikea Effect.
Yeah, and our plan is to really unpack it using the sources you've got there, the articles, research notes, all that.
We want to figure out why putting in labor makes us value things more, often, totally irrationally.
And what that tells us about, our whole relationship with work itself. It gets surprisingly deep.
And the sources you sent over, they cover a lot of ground.
They really do. We've got definitions, sure, but also some great real-world examples.
And some pretty wild experiments, right? Psychology stuff, even looking at animals.
Exactly. And it even brushes up against some bigger philosophical questions about what labor even means. Draws on everything from behavioral economics to classic literature insights. It's quite a mix.
Okay, so diving in, what's the core idea that keeps popping up in these sources?
Well, the main thing, the consistent thing, is pretty simple on the surface. When you put your own work into making something, you don't just see the final thing. You kind of see yourself in it, your effort.
And so you value it more, maybe too much.
That's the idea. You overvalue it. That bakery example you mentioned from the source,
Right.
charging people more to bake their own stuff, even if it's worse.
Yeah, perfect example.
It shows you're not just buying the cake, you're buying the feeling, right? The act of making it, that sense of accomplishment.
Even if the accomplishment is a slightly burnt loaf of bread.
Right. And then there's the namesake, obviously, IKEA.
Oh yeah, spending hours with those little Allen keys. Maybe some swearing involved.
Definitely some swearing. And maybe redoing a step or two.
But that finished bookshelf, even if it's a bit crooked, it just feels more valuable, holds more meaning than something expensive that arrived pre-built.
And researchers, Dan O'Reilly and Mike Norton, they wanted to actually test this systematically.
Your source mentioned an experiment they did back around 2010 with Harvard students and paper.
That's the one, the origami experiment.
Okay, so what did they do?
They got one group of students, right, and had them fold simple origami, cranes, frogs, that sort of thing, following instructions.
Okay, basic paper folding.
Then, when they were done, they asked them, okay, how much would you pay to buy back your own creation?
Putting a price on their own, probably quite bad. Origami.
Exactly. And this is where it gets interesting. On average, the students who made these things, they valued their own work at about 23 cents.
23 cents.
Yeah.
For a paper frog they just folded. Okay, what about other people?
Right, so a second group, people who hadn't done any folding, they just looked at these same amateur creations.
And how much did they think they were worth?
Just 5 cents on average.
Wow. Okay, big difference. But wait, there was another part?
Yeah, there was. Those same bystanders. They were also shown origami made by experts. Really well done pieces.
And what did they value those at?
Much higher. Around 27 cents.
You said it here. So the people who made the dodgy frog valued it at 23 cents, which is almost as much as anyone valued the expertly made ones at 27 cents.
Pretty much. While the objective observer saw the student's work for what it was worth, almost nothing. 5 cents.
That really hits it home. Our own labor makes us kind of blind to the actual quality, doesn't it, compared to someone else looking at it?
It absolutely does. That personal investment massively inflates how we see the value.
Yeah.
Way beyond what anyone else or the market would say is rational.
Okay, so that's the IKEA effect. Putting in work makes us love the result more. But hang on, that raises a practical question. If you're designing something for people, like an experience or a product they interact with, how much work do you make them do?
That's a great point. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, because if it's too easy, maybe they don't feel anything, no investment.
Right, no sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
But if it's too hard,
They just get frustrated and give up. So where's that sweet spot?
finding that optimal effort level is absolutely key.
Yeah.
And your source has this fantastic story from mid-century America about this. The cake mixes.
Oh, the cake mix story. Yes, I love this. So companies rolled out these instant mixes, right? Biscuits, pies, cakes.
And the biscuits and pie crust did okay, but the cake mixes, they bombed at first.
Yeah, manufacturers were scratching their heads, tried changing the sugar, the flavor. Nothing worked.
It wasn't the taste, it was deeper than that. A psychologist, Ernest Dichter, he figured it out.
What was his diagnosis?
The original mixes were just too easy. Add water, stir, bake, that's it.
And that was bad.
For the users, yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly women at the time. They didn't feel like they had actually baked the cake. There was no contribution. It felt like cheating, almost. Like serving something straight out of a box. No pride.
So Dichter's solution was kind of genius, wasn't it? Counterintuitive.
Totally. He said, take the dried egg out of the mix.
Just the egg.
Just the egg.
Yeah.
Make the baker add fresh eggs at home.
Yeah.
One little step, cracking an egg, mixing it in. It felt like real baking. It required just enough personal input.
And they called this the egg theory, right?
Aptly named, yeah.
Yeah.
And it completely turned things around.
Companies added that little bit of required work.
And suddenly, people felt that connection, that sense of creation from their labor. It basically triggered the Ikea effect for cake mixes. Sales took off.
Wow. Adding a bit of effort actually increased the appeal. That's wild.
Yeah. It shows that balance is everything.
And this wasn't just a one-off idea, right? It got sort of formalized later.
Yes. Sandra Lee, from the semi-homemade cooking stuff.
Oh, right.
She kind of codified it with her 70-30 rule.
70-30, what's that?
The idea is you start with about 70% pre-made stuff, the cake mix, maybe store-bought pastry, whatever.
Okay, the base.
And then you add 30% of your own effort and creativity. Fresh ingredients, a special frosting, maybe just arranging it nicely.
So you get that feeling of accomplishment, that I made this feeling.
Without having to do everything from scratch. It hits that sweet spot of involvement again. That DIY bakery thing taps right into this.
Okay, this is fascinating. So we value things more if we make them, and there's this sweet spot for effort. But thinking about valuing the labor itself, that makes you wonder about work more broadly, doesn't it?
It really does. What is the point of work for us, fundamentally?
And your source contrasts this whole idea with, traditional economics.
Yeah, the classical view often says we humans just dislike work. Inherently.
It's just a chore, something you have to do to get paid.
Exactly, a cost. A necessary evil you put up with so you can earn money and then enjoy your leisure time.
So in that view, the ideal would be, what? To do nothing and just get stuff.
Pretty much. To be a parasite, as the source puts it, if you could manage it. Maximize consumption, minimize effort.
But the Ikea effect seems to fly right in the face of that.
It really challenges it. If we actively, even irrationally, like the things we work on more, maybe labor isn't just a cost. Maybe there's something else going on.
Something valuable in the work itself, beyond the paycheck.
Maybe. And to really drive this home, your source brings in some amazing stuff from animal psychology.
Oh, yeah, this was incredible. The contra-freeloading.
Contra-freeloading. Back in the 1960s, psychologist Glenn Jensen, he did these experiments with rats.
Okay, rats in a box.
Pretty much. Standard setup, press the lever, get a food pellet. The rats learned it quick, obviously. Happy to press the lever for food.
Standard conditioning, but then he changed it.
Right. Then he added a second option. A little dish right there in the box, full of free food pellets. No work required.
So they could press the lever or just eat the free food.
Exactly. They had a choice. Effort or no effort.
And logic, or maybe just laziness, would suggest they'd just eat the free stuff, right? Why work if you don't have to?
That's what classical economics might predict, minimizing effort. But here's the kicker.
What happened?
Not a single rat out of 200 in the study chose only the free food.
Not one.
Nope. They all kept pressing the lever for at least some of their food, even with the free buffet right next to it.
Wow.
And get this, 44% of them, almost half, actually got more than half their food by working the lever.
They chose to work for it when they absolutely didn't need to. That's just wild. It's just something deeper is going on than just survival.
It really does. And it's not just rats. This contra-freeloading thing, it's been seen all over the animal kingdom. Fish, birds, monkeys, apes.
Lots of animals seem to prefer working for food over just getting it handed to them.
It seems that way. There appears to be some intrinsic value in the effort itself.
So, if animals show this, what does that say about us? About humans and our own drive to work? Is there something innate there?
Well, it certainly makes you think, especially when you look at modern work. Your source brings up how work has changed, right? Leading to what thinkers like Marx called alienation.
How so?
So much work today is broken down, highly specialized. You do one tiny part of a huge process.
Like the pin factory example from Adam Smith.
Exactly. Smith highlighted the efficiency splitting pin making into 18 steps meant way more pins. Massive productivity boost.
But the downside?
The downside is you might never see the finished pin. You don't see how your little step fits into the hole. It makes it really hard to feel that Ikea effect, that sense of, I made this.
Your labor feels disconnected, maybe even like something a machine could do.
Precisely. It can feel meaningless, interchangeable.
And that's not just factory lines, is it? Lots of office jobs can feel like that. Working on one part of a huge project, a report that gets absorbed, maybe code that gets changed.
Right. That feeling of completing something whole, something yours, can be really hard to come by.
And yet, the source points out that even with all this fragmentation, people still seem to really need some sense of meaning, some purpose.
Absolutely. Even if the task is repetitive, feeling like it matters, feeling appreciated, connected to something bigger, it seems crucial.
And there's research on this too, the Lego robot experiment, also airily.
Yes, from 2008, another great one. They had people build Lego robots.
Okay.
And they paid them, but less for each robot they built. So diminishing returns. They keep going until they decided it wasn't worth the money anymore.
Standard setup. What was the twist?
2 conditions. Group 1, they build the robot, set it aside. The researchers said they'd take them apart later.
Okay, so the work exists for a bit.
Group 2, they finish building the robot. And the researcher immediately takes it apart right there in front of them before they even start the next one.
Ouch, instant destruction of their effort.
Exactly. Now, both groups knew the robots weren't permanent. But for group 1, their work had a brief lifespan. A tiny bit of meaning, maybe? Persistence.
Well, group 2 was just Sisyphean. Building only to see it undone immediately.
And the difference it made was huge, even though the pay was identical.
How many did they build?
The group whose work had that tiny bit of meaning, they built, on average, 10.6 robots.
Okay. And the instant destruction group?
Only 7.2.
Wow. That's a big drop, just because their work was immediately undone.
It's a powerful finding. It shows that even the smallest sense of meaning, just seeing your creation exist for a short while, boosts motivation way beyond just the cash.
We're driven by purpose then, not just paychecks.
It really seems that way. Even a sliver of it makes a difference.
Okay, let's try and pull these threads together for you. We've seen the Ikea effect, how our labor makes us overvalue things.
Right. And the egg theory and 70-30 rule, finding that sweet spot of effort for engagement.
Then contra-freeloading this, like deep drive for labor, maybe even innate, seen in animals too.
Yeah, and contrasting that drive with modern work, which is often fragmented and can feel meaningless.
But we saw how vital even a tiny bit of meaning is for motivation, like with the Lego experiment. It's not just about the money.
And your source adds that final, really important layer.
Which is?
But understanding why we work and what motivates us is one thing, but how the rewards of that work get distributed, that's a whole other, often tricky conversation.
Right. It touched on that idea of non-workers shall not eat, but then quickly got into the justifications for inequality, the Animal Farm example.
Yeah, pretty stark. The pigs taking the milk and apples.
Claiming they need it because they're brain workers. Right. That their management work is so crucial for everyone else that they deserve the extra resources.
It's a sharp reminder, isn't it? Valuing the effort is one thing. Deciding who gets the benefits is another, and often not equal at all.
So we seem to have this deep human, maybe even animal, need to find meaning in work. Purpose drives us, even a little bit of it.
It appears fundamental.
Okay, so here's something to think about for you listening. We have this drive, right, to create, to contribute, find meaning. But then you look at so much modern work, fragmented, repetitive, disconnected, like the sources described. How does that clash with this fundamental part of us, this need that goes beyond just getting paid?
It's a real tension, isn't it?
Yeah. So what could this suggest about how we might, rethink work, maybe for ourselves, maybe on a bigger scale? How could we align the way we work better with this inherent drive we seem to have, this need to engage and find meaning in our efforts?